Hello, dear listeners and readers. Thank you for joining me today as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, a journey that doesn't center on us, but on God. In a world that urges us to chase self-sufficiency, achievements, and fleeting happiness, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Let's pause for a moment and dive into the profound truth that finding ourselves isn't about discovering who we are on our own, but about being found in God. Today, we'll explore three spiritual insights inspired by the teachings of C.S. Lewis and biblical wisdom that will guide us toward a deeper understanding of what it means to find ourselves in Him. 1. The illusion of self-sufficiency. C.S. Lewis, one of the most profound voices in Christian thought, often delved into the human tendency to rely on self-sufficiency. In his timeless work, Mere Christianity, he writes, "The moment you have a self at all, there is the possibility of putting yourself first, wanting to be the center, wanting to be God." This statement shines a light on a universal struggle, the deep-rooted desire to control our lives, define our worth, and secure our happiness without reliance on God. In our modern age, this tendency has only grown stronger. From childhood, we're inundated with messages celebrating independence, self-reliance, and individual achievement. We're taught that success lies in our ability to craft our identity, pursue personal happiness, and accumulate accolades that validate our worth. Our culture reveres the self-made individual, glorifying the idea that fulfillment is achieved solely through hard work and personal ambition. Yet beneath this glittering facade lies an uncomfortable truth: self-sufficiency is an illusion, one that often leaves us restless and hollow. The writer of Ecclesiastes eloquently captures this sentiment. "I have seen all the things that are done under the sun, all of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind." Ecclesiastes 1 verse 14. No matter how much we achieve or how fiercely we strive, the pursuit of self-sufficiency often feels like trying to grasp the wind, fleeting, unsatisfying, and ultimately unattainable. Have you ever wondered why this is the case? The answer lies in our design. As humans, we were never created to stand alone at the center of our own existence. Instead, we were made to live in relationship, with God, with others, and with the world around us. When we attempt to replace God's centrality with our own, we distort this design, creating an imbalance that reverberates throughout our lives. Self-sufficiency, at its core, is a mirage. It tantalizes us with promises of control, fulfillment, and independence, yet it often leaves us feeling more burdened than liberated. Consider the irony: the harder we work to place ourselves at the center, the heavier the weight becomes. The pursuit of perfection in ourselves, whether it's through career success, social validation, or personal achievement, can feel like carrying a load too great to bear. This burden becomes most apparent in moments of quiet. When the applause fades, the accolades are forgotten, and we're left with our thoughts: what remains? Without God, the foundation of our identity is fragile. If our worth is tied solely to our achievements or the image we project to the world, what happens when those things falter? What happens when life throws challenges our way, when we fail, when relationships crumble, or when the goals we've worked tirelessly to achieve suddenly lose their meaning? C.S. Lewis would argue that it is precisely in these moments of restlessness and disillusionment that we are most open to recognizing the truth: we are not enough on our own. This isn't a statement of defeat but of liberation. When we stop striving to be the center of our universe, we create space for God to take His rightful place. True fulfillment begins with humility, an acknowledgement that we are limited, dependent beings who need something far greater than ourselves. This humility doesn't diminish us; instead, it lifts us up. By stepping aside and allowing God to guide our lives, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of self-reliance. As Jesus reminds us in Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Think about the profound simplicity of these words. God doesn't ask us to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. He invites us to release that weight to Him. This is the antithesis of the world's message, which tells us to work harder, push further, and never admit our need for help. But admitting our need isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the beginning of a journey toward true freedom and fulfillment. When we relinquish the illusion of self-sufficiency, we discover something extraordinary, that our worth is not tied to what we do but to who we are in Christ. In relinquishing control, we find peace. In surrendering our need to be at the center, we experience joy. And in recognizing our dependence on God, we step into a life that is richer, deeper, and more meaningful than anything we could achieve on our own. So, let us pause and reflect. What areas of our lives are we clinging to in self-reliance? Where are we striving to control what only God can handle? And most importantly, are we willing to release those things and trust in His perfect plan for us? The journey from self-sufficiency to surrender isn't easy. It requires faith, vulnerability, and a willingness to let go of the familiar. But it is a journey worth taking, a journey that leads not to emptiness but to abundance, not to restlessness but to peace, and not to insignificance but to a life anchored in the love and purpose of our Creator. And as we take that step, we'll discover what C.S. Lewis and countless others have found, that losing ourselves in God isn't a loss at all. It is the beginning of a life filled with meaning, joy, and the deep assurance that we are loved beyond measure. Let us embrace this truth and live in the freedom it brings. 2. Losing yourself to gain everything. At first glance, the notion of losing oneself may seem daunting, even unsettling. Does it mean relinquishing who we are, abandoning our dreams, or forsaking the passions that make us unique? Far from it. Losing yourself in God does not erase your individuality, rather, it allows you to discover your truest, most complete self, the person God intended you to be. This idea is beautifully captured by C.S. Lewis in The Weight of Glory, where he wrote, "The more we let God take us over, the more truly ourselves we become, because He made us." This divine paradox, first presented by Jesus in Matthew 16 verse 25, is both challenging and transformative. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. In these words, Christ offers a profound truth. By clinging tightly to our self-made identities and desires, we limit ourselves. But when we surrender these to God, we discover the abundant, meaningful life He has prepared for us. To understand this paradox, consider the metaphor of a seed, a small, seemingly insignificant thing that holds the potential for remarkable growth. Jesus explained this in John 12 verse 24, saying, "Very truly I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds." The seed must undergo a transformation. It must let go of its original form to grow into something far greater. Similarly, surrendering to God might feel like loss at first, but it's the gateway to unimaginable spiritual growth and abundance. 3. Being found in God, the ultimate transformation. The idea of being found in God is not just a theological concept or a call to religious observance, it is the very essence of Christian transformation. It's about experiencing a deep, inner metamorphosis that shifts the foundation of our identity from the temporary and fleeting things of this world to the eternal and unchanging love of God. This transformation is the ultimate discovery, where we no longer define ourselves by the transient standards of the world, but by the truth that we are beloved children of the Creator, deeply cherished by the one who made us. To be found in God is not a one-time event, but a continual, lifelong journey of surrender, renewal, and becoming. This journey isn't about wearing the label of a Christian or performing rituals and outward actions. It's about an inward shift that redefines our purpose, values, and identity. It's a call to leave behind the illusions of self-sufficiency, control, and independence, and instead, to fully embrace God's presence and direction in our lives. C.S. Lewis, in his renowned work Mere Christianity, captures this transformation powerfully when he writes, "Your real, new self will not come as long as you are looking for it. It will come when you are looking for Him." This statement challenges the prevailing mindset of modern society, which often encourages us to look inward for meaning and purpose. According to the world, self-discovery is achieved through self-reflection, personal achievement, and exploration. Yet, Lewis and the Bible redirect our focus from the fleeting satisfaction of self-centeredness to the infinite fulfillment found only in God. True self-discovery, as Lewis wisely asserts, doesn't come from searching for ourselves but from looking to God, who is the source of our identity. A lifelong journey of surrender. Being found in God is a process that unfolds over a lifetime. It is a journey of daily surrender and trust in God's perfect plan for our lives. It's not about a sudden, dramatic shift but a gradual alignment of our hearts, minds, and actions with God's will. The Apostle Paul describes this transformation powerfully in Galatians 2 verse 20, "I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me." Paul's words echo the central theme of the Christian life, that when we choose to live for Christ, we are no longer the driving force of our existence. Our lives are no longer our own to control, they belong to God. This doesn't mean that we lose our individuality or become faceless followers of a set of rules. Rather, it's an invitation to align our personal desires with the divine purpose that God has uniquely crafted for each of us. The transformation that happens when we are found in God is not about abandoning our personalities or our unique gifts. Rather, it's about refining and enhancing who we truly are in Christ. We are invited to let go of the false, worldly identities we often cling to, the roles we play in our careers, the labels society places on us, the expectations we impose on ourselves, and allow God to shape us into the people He always intended us to be. As we surrender to Him, we discover a deeper, more authentic version of ourselves, one that reflects His image and lives for His glory. Peace and joy beyond understanding. As we grow in our relationship with God, we begin to experience a peace and joy that is not dictated by external circumstances. The world offers a version of peace that is often dependent on temporary things, success, status, approval, or possessions. But the peace of God, as described in Philippians 4 verse 7, transcends all understanding. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This peace is not a fleeting feeling that comes and goes based on our circumstances. It is a deep, abiding peace that comes from knowing that we are loved and held by God, regardless of what we face in life. It is the peace that Jesus promised to His disciples when He said in John 14 verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." This peace guards our hearts and minds from the fears, anxieties, and uncertainties of life. It's a peace that defies logic and circumstances, a peace that comes only from being anchored in the unchanging love of God. When we are found in God, we begin to experience this peace in profound ways, and it becomes the foundation of our lives, no matter the storms we face. Along with peace, being found in God brings a joy that surpasses anything the world can offer. This joy is not superficial or dependent on our successes, but is rooted in the deep assurance of God's presence and His promises. The psalmist writes in Psalm 16 verse 11, "You make known to me the path of life, you will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." The joy of the Lord is a gift that springs from His presence, and it is a joy that cannot be taken away, even in times of hardship. Living by faith, not by sight. The call to be found in God is a call to live by faith, not by sight. It is an invitation to trust in God's plan for us, even when we don't fully understand it. In 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7, Paul reminds us that we live by faith, not by sight. Living by faith means trusting God's goodness, even in the midst of uncertainty. It means believing that He is working all things together for our good, even when we can't see how it all fits together. Being found in God also means living in the light of His eternal perspective. The world encourages us to focus on the here and now, to chase after immediate gratification and success. But when we are found in God, we are invited to live with eternity in mind. Our actions, decisions, and priorities shift as we align our lives with God's eternal kingdom. We begin to see life through His lens, understanding that the trials and challenges we face in this world are temporary, but the rewards of living for Him are eternal. Our true identity in Christ. Ultimately, to be found in God is to discover our true identity as His beloved children. The world constantly seeks to define us by our accomplishments, relationships, and status. But God's definition of who we are is far greater and more enduring. In Ephesians 1 verse 5, Paul reminds us that, in love He predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ, in accordance with His pleasure and will. Our true identity is not based on what we do or achieve, but on the fact that we are chosen and loved by God. We are heirs of His kingdom, called to live in the fullness of His love and grace. This identity shapes every aspect of our lives, from how we view ourselves to how we interact with others. It gives us the confidence to live boldly for God, knowing that we are secure in His love and His purpose for us. It frees us from the pressure to prove ourselves and allows us to rest in the truth that we are accepted just as we are, loved unconditionally by the Creator of the universe. A life transformed by God's love. Being found in God is a lifelong transformation, a journey that begins with surrender and continues with faith and trust in His loving guidance. It is not about striving to become something we are not, but about aligning our hearts with God's will and allowing Him to shape us into the people we were always meant to be. This process brings peace, joy, purpose, and a deep sense of fulfillment that the world cannot provide. In the end, to be found in God is to live in the full knowledge that we are loved, chosen, and deeply valued by our Creator. And as we continue to seek Him with our whole hearts, we become more and more the person He has called us to be, a person who reflects His love, His truth, and His glory in all that we do. The struggle to let go. Letting go is rarely easy. Our natural instincts resist surrender because it feels like losing control. We live in a world that teaches us to hold tightly to our ambitions, protect our image, and assert our independence. Society often equates surrender with weakness, and the idea of yielding to a higher authority, be it God or otherwise, can feel countercultural. But ask yourself this: how much of the life we fight to preserve truly satisfies our souls? The endless pursuit of wealth, recognition, and personal fulfillment often leaves us feeling hollow, burdened by the very things we thought would bring happiness. The irony is profound. Our striving for independence often chains us to anxiety and restlessness. In surrendering to God, we're not giving up who we are, we're giving up who we think we need to be. We're letting go of the shallow and temporary in exchange for the deep and eternal. This is not about forfeiting dreams or ambitions but aligning them with God's perfect will. His plans, as Jeremiah 29 verse 11 reminds us, are to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope and a future. The beauty of transformation. True surrender begins when we allow God to transform us from within. It's not an overnight process, it's a journey of faith, trust, and renewal. When we stop striving to control every aspect of our lives and instead place our trust in God, we experience a profound shift. Our focus moves away from self-preservation and toward living for something greater, God's glory and His purpose for our lives. C.S. Lewis eloquently wrote, "Your real, new self will not come as long as you are looking for it. It will come when you are looking for Him." This underscores a fundamental truth: the more we fix our eyes on God, the more we become who we were created to be. Our identity is not rooted in the opinions of others, our achievements, or even our failures. It is rooted in Christ, who knows us intimately and loves us unconditionally. The act of surrender also brings freedom, a release from the burdens of self-reliance. When we hand over our fears, doubts, and struggles to God, we find rest. As Jesus promises in Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The abundant life in Christ. Surrendering to God leads us to the life Jesus described in John 10 verse 10, "I have come that they may have life, and have it to the full." This abundant life isn't about material success or worldly accolades, it's about living in the richness of God's love, grace, and purpose. It's about waking up each day with a deep sense of peace, knowing that you are walking in alignment with His will. When we lose ourselves in God, we gain everything that truly matters. We find a sense of purpose that transcends the temporary goals of this world. We gain an unshakable identity as God's beloved children, and we experience a joy and peace that surpass all understanding. Philippians 4 verse 7. This is the abundant life, a life not free from challenges but deeply rooted in the assurance that God is with us, guiding and sustaining us every step of the way. A call to trust. As you reflect on this call to surrender, consider the areas of your life where you might be holding back. What fears or desires are keeping you from fully trusting God? Are there dreams you're clinging to that He might be asking you to release? Remember, surrendering to God is not about giving up, it's about stepping into something far greater. It's about trusting that His plans are better than our own and that He is working all things together for our good. Romans 8 verse 28. So, take the first step. Let go of the fear, the striving, and the illusion of control. Allow God to guide your path, shape your identity, and fill your life with His peace and purpose. In losing yourself, you will find the abundant life He has promised, a life of joy, freedom, and deep fulfillment in Him. In the words of C.S. Lewis, when we let God take over, we don't lose our identity. We discover it. And in discovering it, we find a life that is infinitely richer, fuller, and more meaningful than anything we could have ever imagined. A life transformed by God. When we surrender ourselves to God, lose the illusion of self-sufficiency, and allow Him to transform us, we step into a life of true freedom. This freedom isn't about doing whatever we please, it's about being free from the chains of fear, pride, and emptiness. It's about discovering the joy of living in God's presence and walking in His purpose for us. Finding yourself in God doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey of trust, surrender, and transformation. There will be moments of struggle, but those moments are opportunities to grow closer to Him. As we let go of our old ways and embrace the new life God offers, we'll find a sense of purpose, identity, and fulfillment that surpasses anything the world could offer. So, dear friends, let's choose to lose ourselves in God. Let's release the illusions of self-sufficiency, surrender our lives to Him, and embrace the transformative power of being found in His love. This is the path to a life that is not only full but eternal, a life that reflects the beauty and glory of our Creator.